Hey everyone, this is Callie. Welcome to today's card video for Simon Says Stamp. This video uses the Graceful flower set and is part of the August 2024 card kit. I use several products from the card kit and hope you'll enjoy this video. Here's a look at the three main components from the card kit that I'm going to use for my card today. There's the Graceful Flowers stamp set, as well as the Blossom Swag embossing folder and the beautiful Buttercup dies. I'm going to start with the Graceful Flowers stamp set and stamp the large floral bouquet on this watercolor cardstock that's a part of the kit. This watercolor cardstock is an 8.5 by 11 sheet that I cut down to 3.5 inches to fit inside my MISTI, and it's just the right size for this large bouquet. My stamp does look black, but I am stamping with a clear embossing ink so that I can emboss this image with some gold embossing powder. I'm going to sprinkle that gold embossing powder over it and heat set it, and then we'll start to watercolor. Because I'm not too familiar with this watercolor paper, I'm playing around here on my first petal to see how the water moves and how the pigment moves. I decided to go with a loose style, not caring too much about being a perfectionist with the watercolor on this cardstock. But the paper is there for you to try and experiment with if you decide to get the card kit. So if you've never played with watercolor before, use some distress inks and play with this watercolor paper and see what you can get as far as results go. I'm using Daniel Smith watercolors, but I really think you can use any sort of medium that can be watercolored with on a cardstock like this. I'm using 4 different colors for the flowers and 2 different colors for the foliage. I'm starting with a damp brush, picking up some pigment and applying it to the cardstock directly, and then with the dampness from my brush, I'm just pulling that pigment out to color the rest of each section or petal that I'm working on. So it's super easy and quick to do. If you need more pigment, you can always add more. If your brush is too wet and your paper is too wet, you can always swipe up that pigment or water with your brush. I have a stamped chamois to the side that I use that I like to wipe extra pigment or liquid on, but you could use anything you have on hand like a microfiber cloth, regular cloth towel, or even a paper towel. When I was done watercoloring my flowers, I went through with a gold yellow color and colored all the centers. Then I'm working on the foliage. I started with a brighter green for the foliage down at the bottom, and for the larger leaf clusters on the sides, I'm using a more muted green to paint the leaves and add some more concentrated color towards the bottom of each section. I have another strip of watercolor paper here that I am going to apply a light watercolor wash to for the beautiful Buttercup dies. So I'm using 2 different colors of flowers for the 2 different sizes of buttercups. Then I'm also going to do a light wash of green so that I can die cut a few stems as well. Because we have a watercolor stamped image, I wanted to make our die cut images look kind of uniform as well. So that's why I'm doing a watercolor look on those beautiful buttercups. Now going back to some stamping, I wanted to add a few of those loose images from the Graceful flower set, but we already have plenty of color, so I wanted a more subtle floral backdrop with these loose flowers, so I am stamping and embossing them in white over some vellum. After stamping all of the images I thought I would need over the vellum with some clear embossing ink, I went ahead and sprinkled some white embossing powder over it, heat set it, and used a coordinating die set to die cut everything. The coordinating die set is not a part of the card kit, so you'll have to purchase that separately, but it's so handy to have on hand. I've also gone ahead and die cut all of my Buttercup pieces off camera, and I've set all of the images aside so that we can work on the embossing folder. Today's card is going to be a 5x7 card, so I wanted my embossing folder image to be on the largest canvas that I can have. So the piece of paper that I put in my embossing folder is the exact same size as the embossing folder itself. So this is going to mat a 5x7 card base just perfectly, and that card base is a part of the kit as well. As you can see, I also die cut a gold arch frame to add another layer of interest to my card. And because this image is more sized for a slimline card, I decided to cut the foliage apart from the flowers so that I can arrange my own floral arrangement on this card. I also did this to an A2 size card, which I'll show you later, but I really wanted to show you that you're not confined to an image that's a certain size. So you can definitely cut it apart and make a different arrangement to make your card look unique from other cards that might be created using this stamped image. Before I start adding all of my flowers to my card panel, I'm going to go ahead and attach this embossed background to my card base. Now, using some 3D foam tape, I'm going to start adhering all of my images. Because we have that embossed background, I just want to make sure that it adheres well, and I think 3D foam tape is always the way to go, at least in my opinion. Once I have that main floral image at the bottom corner there, I'm going to use the foliage that I cut from the original arrangement to add and tuck into places so that I have a fuller bouquet on this card. Once I'm done with the watercolored graceful flowers images, I'm going to start working on the vellum pieces. For that foliage stem, I did trim it apart so that I could have two different sections of foliage so that I can tuck here and there for extra interest. So I'm spreading all of my flowers out and my foliage as well to make this arrangement even fuller, and those vellum details really add a level of delicacy to this card. I should also mention that on these vellum details, I'm adding them with a thinner foam tape. That way we have different levels of dimension on this card. And also, when you're building a bouquet like this, you don't want to press too hard on all of the flowers and foliage that you're sticking down, because you want to be sure that you can move things if you have to, like I just did with that center leaf between the vellum images. Now that all of those images are down, I'm going to put my buttercups together, and I'm just going to add some adhesive to layer the pieces and add the stems. And once those are done, I'm going to use the thinner 3D foam adhesive as well and attach them to my card. And they are perfect at the tail ends of this floral spray. I know they're not stamped images like the rest of the images are, but as you can see, that watercolor look gives the bouquet a subtle transition between the different elements that we used as far as the stamp and die cut goes. So don't be afraid to mix stamp sets with die cuts. Last but not least, I'm going to stamp and emboss my sentiment, and then I'll use a coordinating die again to die cut the sentiments. Now the card kit comes with some black 3D foam squares, and they're perfect for black sentiments or black elements that you want to put on your card for some dimension. So I'm using that and adding that to my card at the top corner here where there's lots of extra space. So that finishes my card, and I wanted to show you my Copic colored arrangement. I made this one as a part of the social media reel for Simon Says Stamp. So because I wanted it to fit on an A2 sized card, I went ahead and clipped and cut apart the foliage like I did on my card for this video, and I flipped the embossed image over and backed it over some pretty patterned paper that's a part of the kit. So there you have it, 2 examples of cards using products from this wonderful kit. If you're interested in any of the products that I use, be sure to check out the links below, as well as on the coordinating blog post where everything will be linked for your convenience. Thanks so much for stopping by, and have a wonderful day. Bye everyone.
Hi there, I'm Heidi, Simon's mama and founder at simonsaysstamp.com. Thank you so much for watching our video. If you like what you just saw, be sure to press the thumbs up and subscribe to see more great content.